So the last video got cut off um, prematurely, so I apologize. And again, if video editing were really my forte, or if someone wanted to be my personal videographer, that would be awesome. But I'm real. That's not really my focus with the work that I'm doing with the video series. My focus is spreading awareness and having discussions about issues that I believe in. But I'm really not that interested in having this polished project that's meeting everyone else's expectations, because I'm just really interested in meeting my own expectations at this point. I'm in a period in my own life where I'm trying to develop a friendship with myself and learning self acceptance and learning about self love. So, what I've observed is that in most of my life, I've been really concerned with what other people think about me. And I've spoken to that before because I think it relates with women in general, that women are often taught that they're the caretakers of society. And so that as caretakers, the most important thing that they can do is to symbolically really uphold and represent a lot of those kind of family values, which are let's keep the family together, let's preserve unity. And so what that generally has imbibed is a sense of women are the peacemakers, right? And the people pleasers. So a lot of times I've observed this with women. They have a really hard time being honest in discussing things because they want to be liked, and it's a curse and it's a burden and it's a form of slavery. So as an individual lately, I've gotten to a place in my life where really making peace with not being friends with people, really making peace with not being liked and being okay with that, and really making peace with liking myself. So ultimately, at the end of the day, if I can live with my decisions and I can live with my mindset and my ability to be open and my growth and where I'm at as a human in terms of my own evolving, I really feel like that's some of the biggest and deepest work I'm going to be able to do in this lifetime, is to rid myself of others' expectations and rid myself of others' rejections, that I don't allow others to define me and I don't allow others to determine my worth. And I think that's some of the hardest work, in particular for women to do, because women have been taught for so long that they are the value of their bodies. They are the value of their youth in this society, which is a very finite value. I mean, it's very finite. We women just have been taught that they need to suppress, and that's why I think a lot of women are very depressed and on these anti-depression medications, which I understand in theory in terms of having something to help you out in a crisis. I don't understand as a long-term plan, particularly because of my views around depression. My views with women and depression is that women have been taught to stuff things from the time that they're little girls. You know, they're taught that to be a nice little girl means you don't stand up for yourself and you aren't bossy, right? We have all these negative concepts about women who stand up for themselves. We don't tell them you're an awesome little leader, you know, you're an awesome little fighter, like good for you, you're a friggin' warrior, right? We don't tell girls this. We tell them that they need to be pretty and buy like bullshit makeup that like gives them skin cancer and is tested on animals. Like we tell them that they need to be well liked, and that they that publicly shaming women is really the way to break their spirits. You basically tell women like you're a bitch or you're a cunt or whatever. And these are all really misogynistic, hateful ways to treat females. And it's heartbreaking, really, because all these little girls are growing up with these concepts of like, hey, daddy, you know, you told me I could be anybody. But then I get out there in society and society says, are you hot? Or society says, you know, how well liked can you be? And so I think that limits women's expression, because you can't talk about hard subjects and be well liked. You can't speak your truth and be well liked. You can't address hard subjects and address people's bullshit and their unhealthiness and call out institutions or administrations that are corrupt and be well liked. So really you're telling like half of human civilization that they need to stay in kind of a suppressed place where they're packing in that anger and they're packing in their their feelings. So women are allowed to really only express a very, you know, minute level of expression. They're allowed to be, you know, bitchy around the time of their periods, or they're allowed to um, be jealous of their boyfriends, but they're not actually allowed to be political, and they're not really allowed to be angry, and they're not allowed to be revolutionaries, and they're not allowed to be like this or that. So it's kind of bullshit in terms of the things that women are allowed to be, in terms of what society is willing to say, like, you're awesome, right? So if you're a politician and you're a woman, maybe you are really good at towing the party line and kissing the asses of the male figureheads who've, absconded with a lot of the power in civilization at this point. But I don't know that you're really allowed to be like an angry woman, because to be an angry woman is to be unliked. It's almost like the two are synonymous, which I find hilarious, because sometimes people will say to me, you seem really angry, and I'm just kind of like perplexed by that, because I'm actually not really a very angry person. Like, if you knew me personally as a human being, I'm not really that angry of a person. Like, I'm joking all the time. I make fun of myself all the time. Um, I laugh a lot. So I wouldn't say that I'm an angry person. I would say I'm really in touch with my anger. I think that there's a huge difference between being an angry person and being in touch with your anger. And it's really sad to me when people are spreading concepts that are sexist or misogynistic and they're completely unaware. They don't even realize what they're spreading. So what they're spreading is, I'm going to shame you. I'm going to make you feel like there's something wrong with you, because I'm going to say that you seem like an angry woman, right? Because there's a body experience. It's what I call a body experience. It's like, a lot of times it's right up here in the chest area, but it's like when you're filled with fear, when you have a emotional experience where you have an emotion flooding your body. So in this circumstance, when someone says you seem like an angry person or what have you, there's a experience of like, whoa, you think I'm angry? Oh, like, oh no, like, that's not who I am, but like, your brain has to understand this, like, wow, that's really how you see me. You see me as an angry person. And then there's like shame, like, oh, I must not have done a good job expressing my sense of my own humanity or my own vision of the world to have someone think that I come across as angry. And the realization that this is about someone else. This is not about you. This is, if you know that you're not angry, or that you're justifiably angry, but you're not an angry person, that you're actually a relatively happy person, you don't have to take that on. But I think women are accustomed to other people labeling them and taking in that label, and then they become that. Like, you're the bitch, you take that on, like, you're like, oh, maybe I'll own it with pride, I'm a bitch, right? But I think women are accustomed to being receivers. If you even look at their body, and being a receiver in terms of having a vagina, like a receptacle in a sense. I think women are oftentimes these receivers. So they take in this information and then they let it become them, right? And so they take on this disgrace or this humiliation, like, oh, I guess I am angry. Like, oh, geez, I'm so sorry. But you want to really say, like, motherfucker, I'm not angry. I'm not angry. And how concerning is it that you need to label me as angry? Like, that's the sad part. I think I need to take a mirror, and you need to do some deep work on yourself to look at that, that you would need to blame or label a woman who speaks out as angry. I think that really says a lot, and it's very sad and very uncomfortable to really understand the implications from a social and cultural perspective of what it means to have people that are your friends, right, say this to you, like, you seem angry, right? Because it's these friends who have the greatest impact on us, right? These are people that we trust, right? So that brings me back to change, because I was talking about food and these people that are really set on their unhealthy eating and unhealthy living and unhealthy fatness and poisoning themselves slowly, and we don't have the name or the words in our culture to express our sadness or wanting that person to change for their own sake, right? We would address it if they're an alcoholic, but we don't address it in terms of their food choices. We don't say, like, to your friend, like your girlfriend, like, your ass is getting, hugely fat, like, you're just packing on the pounds, you're really living this sedentary lifestyle. I think it has to do with stress. I mean, to be honest, I've observed you as my friend, and as the stress has increased in your life, you have consistently gained weight, and your muscle tone is terrible, and you just seem really unhappy. I mean, this is your body. You're putting extra stress on your organs by having all this fat. There's a link between sedentary lifestyles and sitting down at work and health and heart disease and so forth, especially traffic and heart disease, and what it means to have heart disease in terms of anger and holding in anger. So if you're having these hard discussions with people that you love about changing or looking at their lives, I think that there is almost this thing where it's considered to be sanctimonious, and that because of that energy of sanctimoniousness, the sick person gets to say, like, F you, you don't get to judge me, and you're being sanctimonious. And it just shuts the conversation down. It's kind of like saying, you seem angry. Just shuts that conversation down. Like, I'm not going to hear you, because now I'm going to take this label, right? The sticker of sanctimoniousness, and I'm going to just smack that down on that conversation, right? So you're coming to me with judgment about my body, my health, eating my cancer food, eating my Diet Sprite and my Diet Coke and all these nasty carcinogenic foods and really poor, low quality food, really low energy food, and sitting in front of the TV and just doing emotional eating. Like, you're calling me out on all that, but I've got this handy dandy sanctimonious sticker, right? And so I'm going to slap that down on that conversation, and that's going to shut that conversation down in a minute, right? Because then the person who's giving this feedback, which was very hard to give in the first place, is going to feel shamed. They are going to feel like, wow, they're right. I'm an asshole. I'm such a mean person. And where do I get off judging them? And they're free to do whatever they want to do with their bodies. And it's their freedom, right? It's this American freedom. You're just so free. Like, we're not a dictatorship like this country or that country. Like, look at us. We're so free to become like fat, unhealthy, people. That's our right. So what's interesting is that when we decide to change, the instance I gave was having a sibling, who may choose to go in an unhealthy way with their eating. Let's say they were molested and then they start eating all the time and they get really fat. And if you're that younger sibling, you might be like, wow, this is what's being modeled for me as a way to deal with stress. So I'm going to start doing that too. I'm going to start eating chips after school in front of the TV. And every time dad yells at me, I'm going to eat a cupcake or I'm going to eat a Twinkie, right? All that sugar and the carbs and the white flour. And it's just, you're going to have the sugar rush, and then you're going to have the sugar crash, and but it just feeds on it. And if you believe in candida, which some people do and some people don't, then you're just feeding the candida inside of you. And it's just, it just gets worse and worse. You just balloon out, you get really fat, you get really sedentary, you get really unhealthy. Emotionally, you really get, the food affects you in terms of your weight and how you're feeling. And it affects your self-esteem, right? Because strangely enough, it's a strange little twist to the little fairy tale of American society, which is then you turn on the TV and the TV tells you you're a piece of shit because you don't have self-control, because you're not like this glorified, thin, young person who's on the screen, who's exemplified as what we all want to be. But ironically, our culture promotes like medicating with food and getting really fat. And so then you have eating disorders, or you have fen-phen, which gives you heart valve issues, like diet drugs or surgery. Like, it's a very diseased society in that respect. So let's say you go to your older sibling or whomever, and you say, well, I'm not going to go down this road that you're modeling for me. Like, I'm going to go and work out at the gym. I'm actually not interested in following you down this road of dysfunction that you're, nice enough to model for me here, in terms of how you're dealing with your sadness and brokenness. Like, society will break us and society will cause trauma, I believe, and then we all have to come to terms with how we're going to heal ourselves from that trauma. And obviously some of us have more trauma than others. So what's interesting is, you would think, in theory, that the friend or the family member or the mate or whoever that you go to and you say, I'm going to need to make some healthy food choices here. So when you bring cancer-causing food back to our home, like, I don't really want to be around it. I don't want to smell it cooking. I don't want to promote it financially. And I'm going to start taking care of myself. So I'm going to eat organic, or I'm going to eat vegan, or I'm going to filter my water, or I'm going to go exercise, and I'm going to take care of me because God or creator or the universe has given me this beautiful, beautiful thing, like this vehicle for my soul. And it's a responsibility, and I plan to take care of it. And I'm grateful for the opportunity to be here on this earth and manifest on this earth. And I'm all about taking care of myself, because I'm going to love myself, and it's okay to love yourself. And I'm down with loving myself, and I'm not going to keep killing myself with cancer-causing food. when you say that, and whether you say it verbally or through your actions, like let's say you're offered that nasty food, right? And you say, well, I have my own food. I'm going to eat my own food. Thank you. People take it as a division. They take it personally because it reminds them of how they're unhealthy. It reminds, anytime you make a decision towards health, anytime you question the status quo, or you say this doesn't really line up, and you say I'm going to lead in a new direction. We're all leaders, and you say I'm going to lead in a new direction. This makes other people uncomfortable. They become extremely uncomfortable, and it's not something they're always in touch with. But for them, it feels like they're being shamed, or they sense that they're killing themselves. It's very similar to an addict when your addict friend is no longer willing to shoot up heroin with you, and your addict friend says to you, oh, I actually got clean and sober when I was, in Portugal last summer, and I haven't been using, so I'd be happy to hang out with you, but I'm not going to be doing drugs with you. When you say this to them, they're not like happy and overjoyed. They should be, in theory, right? We should all be supporting one another to lead more healthy lives and to make the right decisions in order to get there. However our path is taken, or however it's determined, we all need to figure out what works for us to get us to that place. But what's really interesting is I think we don't really aren't in touch with the fact that other people don't want us to get better. And these other people could be our sick family members, our sick loved ones, our sick friends, our sick lovers. They don't want us to get better. They don't want us to get healthier. They don't want us to heal. And it's heartbreaking because it's kind of that lower self that I talked about in a previous video. Like there's the Buddha self, and then kind of like the devil self. And the devil self is like the lower energy self. That's not really who the person is, but it's more of that animal based in lower energy, wanting to get ahead, just being about themselves. Like, so that person's lower self really doesn't want you to get healthier or get better. Um, and one thing I'll point out is that this came up for me recently in a conversation, and um, basically, other people don't want us to get better, and part of that is that they will actually make you pay for getting better. Like, they will punish you in strange ways for getting better. And people don't like to discuss this, but it's very, very true, which is they will reward you if you are willing to eat like them. They will reward you if you are willing to be fat like them, or support their choices, even if you do so in a way that is nonverbal. If you go to the party and eat the snacks that they eat, and you stuff yourself with them and eat the nasty foods with them, that's bonding. Culture is food. We bond through food. So you will be punished in subtle ways if you choose to make a political, it's almost like a political decision, a political move to not eat the garbage, to not eat the cancer-causing food, to not support the fat body medicating culture of padding and bad food and all that it embodies. So in a way, you're almost like placing a vote, and you are going to be discriminated against if you vote different than your friends and family. And it's very, very subtle, but it's also that you are rewarded if you become unhealthy because you are supporting the ideology that it's okay. You're remaining passive. You're supporting the concept that it's okay to continue like that. That's actually a bona fide way of living your life. So by being passive and not speaking up against it with your body choices, because you're voting with your body. You're voting with your body. Your body is voting. And every day, whatever you are putting inside your body is another vote for that system. So those that are really into that system of eating bad food and not looking at why they're eating bad food and medicating and bonding over eating bad food, and not questioning one another and not challenging one another about what that does to their bodies and their spirits, but promoting that even if it's not verbalized, because our culture promotes it already. You turn it on, it's normalized on TV to eat and overeat and medicate yourself with bad food and not challenge each other about poor food choices. This is something that's already modeled on TV. So I think it's really important to look at who supports your food choices, who supports your body choices, And how do they promote those, or how do they discriminate against you? They could do so in ways that are very subtle, very nonverbal, but it could be that your friend offers to take you to a nice occasion, like a nice party or they buy you a gift, but they do so from a place of supporting you because you supported them with how you voted with your food choices. Thank you.